me, the book of Acts, chapter 4. Book of Acts, chapter 4. Read the first 12 verses. And as they spake unto the people, the priests and the captain of the temple and the Sadducees came upon them, being grieved that they taught the people and preached through Jesus the resurrection from the dead. And they laid hands on them and put them in hold until the next day, for it was now eventide. Howbeit, many of them which heard the word believed, and the number of men was about 5,000. And it came to pass on the morrow that the rulers and elders and scribes, and Annas the high priest, and Caiaphas, and John, and Alexander, and as many as were of the kindred of the high priest, were gathered together at Jerusalem. And when they had set them in the midst, they asked, By what power or by what name have ye done this? Then Peter, filled with the Holy Ghost, said unto them, Ye rulers of the people and elders of Israel, if we this day be examined of the good deed done to the impotent man, by what means he is made whole, be it known unto you all, and to all the people of Israel, that by the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, whom ye crucified, whom God raised from the dead, even by him doth this man stand before you whole. This is the stone which was set at naught of you builders, which is become the head of the corner. Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. What is recorded here goes back to what we saw earlier in chapter 3, the miraculous healing of a lame man. In fact, it is a part of what is recorded in chapter 3. It's just another scene of the same account. It's really the sequel of chapter 3. So in the entire account, chapters 3 and 4, there are several characters brought to our attention. The account begins with the mention of Peter and John there in Acts 3. And then in verse 2 we read of a certain man. And then there is the they, those who carried this man. And then in verse 9 there is all the people. And then over in chapter 4, in verse 1, there are the priests, there is the captain of the temple, there are the Sadducees. And in verse 4, there's a segment of all the people, and they are referred to as many of them which heard the word believed. And then in verses 5 and 6, there are the rulers, there's the elders, the scribes, Annas, Caiaphas, John, Alexander, the kindred of the high priest. So these are all various characters connected to the event. But the subject of the event, the main character of the event, is Jesus Christ. And it is in this portion of the account that Peter emphasizes what he said in chapter 3 and verse 16 while they're in the temple with the man that had been healed. He said, And his name, through faith in his name, hath made this man strong, whom ye see and know. Yea, the faith which is by him hath given him this perfect soundness in the presence of you all. So Peter states, while in the temple, that this man stands before you strong by him, by Jesus Christ. So we want to look at this morning the miracle of by him. First of all, let's consider the background and the setting. by way of background, following the miraculous healing of this man, we see him going into the temple with Peter and John, and he's declaring, he's giving clear manifestation that he's been healed, which in chapter 3, verse 8, got the attention of the people. And after looking several times, they realize this is the same crippled man that sat outside the temple. And they know that something miraculous had to have happened in this man's life. We see that in chapter 3, verse 10. It says they were filled with wonder, that is, awe, amazement. They were astonished, they were stunned at that which happened unto him. And then they did what merely religious people tend to do. In chapter 3, verses 11 and 12, they are very anxious to give credit to man. They're ready to give all the credit to Peter and John. So they rush to Peter and John, thinking that they had done something miraculous. And Peter responds in verse 12 of chapter 3, "Why look ye so earnestly on us, as though by our own power or holiness we had made this man to walk?" And then he begins in verse 13 through 26. He proceeds in the hearing of the lame man, because he's with them. He proceeded to preach Jesus Christ to the people. And in verses 13 through 26, counting pronouns, there are 21 references to Jesus Christ. So Peter, preaching this message, the subject of the message, 21 times, he refers to Christ. Christ is the subject. And what he's teaching is, what he said in verse 16, that this lame man from his mother's womb was now in perfect soundness, and Jesus was the cause. Jesus was the reason. That's what he's telling them. So the subject matter of Peter's message was Jesus. This infuriated the Sadducees, which brings us to chapter 4. And they arrested Peter and John and this lame man. And because it was so close to evening, it was too late for a trial, so they jailed them until the next day. In the morning, Peter, John, and this man who had been miraculously healed are brought before this council. So we're before the council now. And notice in verse 7 of chapter 4, and when they had set them, Peter, John, the lame man, which is now the healed man, had set them in the midst. So there they are. Peter, John, this man who had been healed, and they're standing before a Christ-hating, Christ-despising, Christ-opposing, Christ-rejecting council. And there they stand before this council. The people who make up this council, they're angered and they're mystified. And they want to know, how was this man, or by what authority, was this man brought from verse 2 of chapter 3 to verse 8 of chapter 3. How and by what authority did he go from being lame to being able to stand, walk, and leap? We want to know by what authority. So again, you look at this council. They're greatly distressed. They're very annoyed. They are incensed. They are bewildered because of the subject matter of Peter's message. That's what has them upset. The lame man walking is not what upset them. It's Peter's message, Peter's subject, Christ. So they ask in a tone of anger and hate and malice, chapter 4, verse 7, by what power or by what name, authority, have ye done this? So they believe Peter and John has done it, has done the work. And they want to know by what authority. Who gives you the authority to do this? How is this man brought? Under what authority is he brought from chapter 3, verse 2 to chapter 3, verse 8? And with the healed man standing before them, there's the three of them, Peter, John, and the healed man. They cannot deny that a miracle has taken place, but they believe, as a result of their ignorance, that this was a work done by Peter and John. Peter responds in verse 9. Peter can see that these people are angered. They're incensed. And Peter responds in verse 9, and he refers to the man who had been lame as impotent. That is, he's powerless. He was a powerless individual. He's impotent. He's incapable. He's helpless. So with regard to this miracle, he says, I want you to know that this man, he was powerless. He was incapable. He was incapable of rising. He was incapable of standing. He was incapable of walking. He was incapable of leaping. He was helpless in this situation. And then in verse 10, he says, be it known unto you all, referring to those who made up the council, and all the people of Israel going beyond the council. In other words, I want to be perfectly clear with all of you. I want you to understand what I'm saying. I want there to be no mistake about it. And then Peter uses the word by twice. He says, by the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, even, a word to further emphasize the point, even by him doth this man, pointing to the man, doth this man stand before you whole. Those were powerful words. Peter, pointing to the miraculously healed man, says, Jesus is the cause. I want every one of you to know, I don't want there to be any mistake about it. Jesus is the cause. Peter, filled with the Holy Spirit, it says, pointing to the man, says, this man who's no longer lame. And I want you to know what happened, how it came about. And without wavering, Peter says, I'll tell you how. I'll tell you how it came about. And I'll tell you by what authority. Jesus. Jesus. As this council listens to Peter, we are told in verse 13, they saw the boldness of Peter and John. So they saw that. They could recognize that. But they were also looking very intently upon this man who had been lame. Notice what it says in verse 14. And beholding the man which was healed standing with them. So notice, this is significant. They saw Peter and John, but they were beholding the man who had been healed. Big difference. They saw Peter and John, but they were concentrating, as Peter is speaking, on this man who used to sit at the gate, unable to stand. And they're beholding this man who had been healed. And as they intently looked upon him, I imagine they were looking for and hoping that he would show some signs of still being crippled. They're looking intently upon him. He never wobbles. He never gets off balance. He's standing. Standing firm. And as they're beholding him, they're beholding that. And I imagine that just in my own mind, every now and then this man would leap, just move his legs. He is unable, he's not used to doing that. And they're just looking at him. And as they're looking at him, ringing in their ears are these words, by him, by Jesus whom ye have crucified, doth this man stand before you. Oh. And they could not escape those words. By him. They hated that. By him. Did you hear me? By him. And again, they're becoming more and more incensed. So we behold this man miraculously made whole by him. So let's look at this man. He's a manifestly changed man. He didn't stand there for however long this went on and said, you guys mind, I need to rest a while. No, he never said anything like that. My legs are getting tired. Stood there with the biggest smile on his face. Probably still praising God. He's been taken from chapter 3, verse 2 to chapter 3, verse 8. And from there, he's taken to chapter 4, verse 10, standing before them whole. Whole. Two wondrous things. Standing and whole. Two miracles. Standing and whole. How did it come about? By him. By him. Again, keep in mind that everything Peter and John is saying, Peter and John and this healed man heard the message of Peter, and they now hear every word that Peter is saying. This man knows. There's no doubt in my mind, this man knows that he wasn't healed by Peter and John. He was healed. He was made whole by Christ. By him. By him, there he stands, a man of no real significance. In the entire account, chapters 3 and 4, the man's name is never given. We read in chapter 3, verse 2, and a certain man. Those words occur several times in the Gospels. A certain man, a certain woman. Why didn't he just give their name? Because it doesn't matter. They didn't have anything to do with it. Chapter 3, verse 10, and they knew that it was he. He's not referred to by his name, just he. Chapter 3, verse 12, Peter refers to him as this man. This man. Perhaps by the time you get to chapter 3, verse 12, Peter and John knew the man's name. But they don't call him by name. This man. And in verse 16 of chapter 3, he uses the pronoun him. Chapter 4, verse 9, the impotent man. And here in chapter 4, verse 10, this man. And in chapter 4, verse 22, for the man. So his name is never given, which emphasizes his insignificance. And he was not someone who was noteworthy. And neither are we. The Lord never, you think about it, the Lord has never saved an individual that was noteworthy. Never has. You're not saved because you're noteworthy. He was not a man of importance. He was not a man of consequence. He was in no way worthy. He was in no way deserving. But by him, he stands whole. By him. We're not worthy. We're not deserving. But by him. There stands a man who was born in a terrible condition, lame from his mother's womb. A man born again with something so terribly wrong that he was unable to stand, unable to walk. But by him, he stands whole. There stands a man who was really lame. Nobody could say, well, I don't believe he was ever lame to begin with. This man was lame. He had to be carried and laid. It was not that he was sometimes lame, but from birth, every day for over 40 years. His condition was so real, so certain, so unmistakable, that it was unquestionable. It was undebatable. But by him, he stands whole. By him. There he stands, a man who lived his entire life a slave to his condition. Again, for over 40 years, he lived as a lame man. He was carried, laid daily at the gate of the temple to ask alms. Day after day, rain or shine, warm weather, cold weather, he was carried and laid at this place to beg. That was his life. That was his life. And as you see him carried, you see a picture, again, of sorrow. A picture that might result in some pity. You see a picture of misery and gloom and helplessness and hopelessness. But you see him there at one of the gates of the temple. He's over 40 years old. Without a doubt, he has the looks and marks of an individual who's been through the ringer. They're just like a street beggar today. They may only be 35 years old. They may look close to 100 because of the life that they're living. And this man, as he sat outside the temple gate, I'm sure he has the looks and marks of someone who's been through it. Here's a man who's had a very difficult life, a very trying life, a very sad life. And he's been placed outside the gate of the temple, which is called Beautiful. And there he is, a poor, crippled man, begging day after day. That was his life. But hear Peter say, chapter 4, verse 10, this man, the one who lived his entire life a lame man. Those who made up the council, they'd seen this man many times. This man stands before you whole. In other words, you can all see it. He's right here. He stands before you whole. His life has been transformed. And you ask, how and by what authority? By Him whom ye crucified. By Him, Jesus Christ. And again, as you see the man sitting outside the temple, I don't believe you see a man glowing in radiance. But look at him now, standing before this council. He's just smiling, just as happy as could be. This man, by Him. There he stands. A man that could not be fixed. Again, I'm sure in the course of over 40 years that this man's parents and relatives and friends tried various methods on several occasions to get him to walk. But no matter what they tried, he's still a lame man. Perhaps they tried to encourage him to walk. But again, no matter what the encouragement, he's still a lame man. Perhaps very skilled and learned people were consulted concerning his condition. But it didn't matter. Whoever was consulted, he was still a lame man. Others could not give him what he so desperately needed. They couldn't give it to him. And I'm sure that over the course of 40 years, as we said earlier, there were times when he tried to pull himself up and walk. And I'm sure that he, through the years, tried various methods to stand and walk. But no matter how hard he tried, he's still a lame man. No doubt, as we said earlier, over the course of 40 years, he wished he could walk. But all his hopes and his dreams and his aspirations would not enable him to walk. Could not cause his legs to function. Day after day, he's carried, laid daily at the gate of the temple to ask alms. And he would receive every day some silver and some gold. But every day, no matter how many coins were cast at him, still had to be carried home, a lame man, and carried back to the temple the next day. And now we hear Peter say, this man who lived his entire life like a lame man. Why did he live like a lame man? Because he was lame. And such could not be changed. This man stands here before you whole. Peter is saying it's by Him. It's by Him, Jesus Christ, that he stands whole. There he stands, a man who has been transformed. He's insignificant. He's unworthy. He's undeserving. But they're looking intently upon him. And then they hear these words. This man stands before you whole. This man, the one who was disabled and helpless. Look at him now. He stands whole. How? By Him. By Him. This man who lived his entire life a lame man. Look at him now. He stands whole. By Him. This man who was in such desperate need, who could not find what he needed in others, in self, or in the religious system. But look at him now. This man stands before you whole. And it's by Him. It's by Him. So again, we began with a certain man lame from his mother's womb, carried, laid at the gate of the temple to ask alms. But look at him now. Standing whole. Whole. The Lord is the only one who can make whole. Remember the question Jesus asked the impotent man in John 5, wilt thou be made whole? Means he's been healed. He's been restored. He's been made right. There's been a transformation. Salvation is a work of transformation. There's been an overhaul. Not merely of his life, but of the condition which led to his life. There's been a transformation in his condition, an overhaul. And Peter wants this council to know, wants all of us to know, it was by Him. It was by Christ. Don't ever give credit for the salvation of anyone to man. Never. Never. It's by Him. It's by Him. There he stands. All because of Him. So Peter, having informed this council that it was through Christ that this lame man from his mother's womb had been made whole, he then proceeds from there and announces that salvation must be wrought by the same. So again, this is a picture of salvation. Notice verse 11 and 12. By Him, verse 10, then he identifies who the Him is. They knew who it was. This is the stone which was set at naught of you builders, which has become the head of the corner. Neither is there salvation in any other. The lame man is a picture of this salvation. For there is none other name under heaven given among men. Peter's saying, not only was this man healed by him, there's none other name given where man can be healed like this, whereby we must be saved. Again, as we said earlier, I don't believe that this man who had been healed ever had to be carried again. I believe that if someone would say, well, let me help you. No, I don't need your help. I'm fine. He didn't want any help, didn't want any assistance. He just wanted to live the miracle. And it's living the miracle of by Him. That should be our life. Our life should declare, by Him, I'm not what I once was. By Him. You listen to someone's testimony. Count, not literally, but count how many times they use I, me, me. And how many times they refer to Christ. It tells you a lot. It tells you a lot. By Him. I believe He told all that He could of His experience. Always told them how it came about. I imagine there were people that came up to him. Weren't you the man that used to sit outside the temple gate? You look like him. Yeah, that was me. But by Him, I don't sit there anymore. By Him, I don't need the spare change anymore. Well, who do you mean by Him? Well, let me tell you. And on he would go. To live the life of by Him, knowing that we've been saved and it's been by Him, such a life is a life of humility. That will never be a proud person who lives constantly in the awareness it's by Him, it's by Him. It'll be a life of love. How can you not love Him? The one who made you whole. It'll be a life of willingness. Again, go back to John chapter 5. Who told you to take up your bed and walk on the Sabbath day? He that made me whole. What other reason you need? The one who saved my soul told me to do this. And I'm going to do it. Because of who He is. It's a life of resolve. Resolve for Him. Never forget who it was that saved your soul. And now live a life of resolve for Him. It's a life of purpose. Most live their life, sadly, many of God's people, with no real purpose in life. Or if they do have a purpose, it's a wrong one. But He ought to be our purpose and our passion. A profound and miraculous transformation by Him. And that should be manifest in our life. By Him. By Him. Some of you knew Leon DeJarnett. It's Sandra's dad. But he loved to give his testimony. I mean, you wouldn't sit with him very long before he would say, did I ever tell you the day the Lord saved my soul? And I'd say, yes, Leon, you have, but tell it again. And he'd tell it time and time again. I believe that was the case here. Did I ever tell you the day, it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's at the gate called Beautiful. And the Lord came to me and saved my soul. That was this man's testimony. And he knew. He knew who did it. and he knew he had nothing to do with it. That's the life we need to live. We know who it is that saved our soul. Now live a life that manifests that. Brother Ben, if you'll come and lead us in verse of song.